Welcome back to the IE427 garage, everybody. Today we are working on our Mark IV prototype. We have switched gears and are actually working today on all of the finishing touches here in the front of the car. I've already got the mesh installed on the front duct opening. So you can see here, this time we painted these up black the other day. I've got some tie wraps holding them in place, and they're not tight. They're just kind of holding them in place. You can see they're a little bit loose, but they hold the actual mesh in place. And I did these yesterday. The adhesive is all dry, so I can go ahead and take those tie wraps off. We did both the brake duct scoop openings and the oil cooler opening here in the bottom. And it came out really nice. So we've got that done. And then I went ahead and I installed our pool noodle. Basically, we trim down and insert a pool noodle in between the body and the foot boxes to seal off any of that air that would penetrate and go into the cockpit, whether that air is hot or cold, depending on the season, of course. So I did those yesterday, and I think what I'm going to turn my attention to next is getting all of the wiring for our turn signals and our headlights all squared away. So you can see we've got the harness here for our parking lights. We've got the harness up here for our headlights. I want to get all that squared away, get all the wiring tucked away, and then probably after that what we'll concentrate on doing is getting the side pipes mounted for the final time. So up until now, we've only had a couple of bolts run through the flanges for the header to the side pipe connection, and that's plenty just to pull the car in and out of the shop. You don't need gaskets in there or anything else. We haven't noticed any ill effects on the computer for the Ford control pack because we're not really driving the car, you know, we're just kind of idling it. So we'll pull this apart, we'll put the copper high temperature RTV on, we'll use regular hardware for the time being, and then once we have the silicone, the copper RTV cured, we'll swap these bolts out one at a time for the actual hardware that goes in there for good, and then the side pipes will be done. And then I have a set of the side pipe covers, the heat shields that need to go on here as well, so we may even get those done. The last thing that we're probably going to be working on is getting the splash shields installed inside the wheel wells, and that'll probably be the last thing we do for the video. So stick with me. I'm going to get to work here, and I'll bring you back just as soon as I've got something to show you. Much later in the day, I have the side pipes in place. I have the copper RTV in place as well. I'm going to wait for that overnight to set up, and then I'll change out all of this temporary hardware for the stainless hardware that comes with the side pipes. I got a little distracted, and I thought I better fit the front air dam before I got too carried away with anything else, because I don't think this is going to clear the lift, so I'm not going to be able to leave this on here to get the car off the lift. But I wanted to pre-fit everything so that when we deliver the car to the car owner, that if he wants to put this thing on, it's not a big deal. Now, we did use all plastic or nylon hardware, so our machine screws are all that nylon, the black nylon material. They're 1/4 actually, no, they're 6 millimeter. 6x1x20, I think, are the machine screws, the nylon machine screws that we've got in there. And then for right now, I have some steel hardware for the kicker braces right here. I'm going to replace those with some nylon hardware because I want this thing, if it ever gets caught on something, I'd like it to break loose rather than tearing off the front of the car, because it's a lot cheaper to replace an air dam than it is to replace all the fiberglass on the front of the car. So we have that in place, but it's going to come back off because, like I said, I don't think it'll clear the lift for me to get this off the lift or load it into the trailer for that matter. So we've got the RTV on this side, the copper RTV, setting up as well. The side pipes are adjusted. They're in place. They're bolted tight for now, and then we'll replace them, replace all the hardware with this stainless hardware that comes with the side pipes. One other thing I'm going to do before I go in for the day, or that I've already done, is I've put the side angle brackets on the louvers. So the louvers are ready to go on the car. I'll let that adhesive set up overnight, and tomorrow we'll mount those in the car as well. All right, it's the next day. We haven't done a music update in a while, so White Zombie, more human than human. Okay, last night I finished up by getting all of the header sealant, so the copper RTV sealant in between the side pipes, and remember I had all of the temporary hardware in here for all that to set up overnight. I got in here this afternoon, I changed out all of that hardware for locking hardware. So the Factory 5 supplied hardware is a cap head screw, which is stainless steel, so it's an Allen drive, and then it is a steel lock nut, and these are wave locking nuts. So very similar to a nylock nut, but instead of using nylon to lock these in place, the last thread of the nut is deformed or shaped like a wave, and that's what keeps these in place. Now, the downside of these is as they come off, they usually booger up the thread so bad you cannot reuse the nuts. But in some cases, you can reuse the bolts. So once you get everything in place and you're certain that you're not going to be taking your side pipes off for a good long time, go ahead and install it with the hardware that came with the side pipes. Up until that point, just use regular hardware. It's just easier that way. Also, when I got out here today, I went ahead and I installed our louvers. We install these just the same as we do every other car that we've built here. We've got silicone sealant that bonds the angle bracket that are supplied with the louvers to the louver, and then we've got silicone sealant that is actually we're actually using the silicone adhesive to adhere the angle brackets to the back of the fiberglass as well. The foil tape that you see on there is only temporary, but we've just gotten the habit of leaving it on because it helps hold everything in place for now, but there's really no reason for it to come off, so we just go ahead and leave that on there. And then I know I'm going to get some haters out there that are going to tell me that this is not the proper way to mount the louvers, but the louvers really don't come with instructions. And years ago when I asked Jeff Miller how he mounts them, he told me he mounts them with silicone, and I asked him why, and he told me, he explained it to me, and it makes perfectly good sense. The louvers don't really weigh anything, so they're not structural. You're not holding a great amount of weight to the fiberglass. They're aluminum, they're lightweight, but also if you ever have to remove these things, you can just slide a thin putty knife behind the angle bracket and between the body and push, and it'll actually cut right through the silicone and you can pull the louver off. So let's say your windshield is subject to the crack in it because you didn't properly shim your windshield post when you installed it, and you've got to get that windshield out. Well, the louver is how I access the hardware on this side, the passenger side anyway. So pull the louver out, get your windshield fixed, replaced, and then you go ahead and you just pop the louver back in place with new silicone. Seems pretty simple, right? So for all the haters out there that think it needs to be bonded with HSRF and all this other stuff, you do it your way, and I'm good with that, and I'll do it my way, and my way works just fine. The last thing that I wanted to show you is the wiring that we took care of here in the front of the car. So we went ahead and we installed cushion clips in all the places that we could, and then I've got a couple of well-disguised tie wraps that are holding the connectors in place. All we really want to do is we want to keep this out of harm's way, so as the wheels are turning inside of the fender well, we're not going to inadvertently catch one of the wires and tear something off. So as long as everything's tucked nice and neatly towards the front of the car, it'll be just fine. We did this on both sides of the car. We've got everything dressed. It's ready to go. I think the last thing that I'm going to do is work on getting the front splash shields. Actually, they're the rear of the front fender splash shields. So as soon as I get those far enough along and have something to show you, I'll bring you back. All right, I purposely stopped at this point because I've been seeing far too many responses to threads on Facebook, in the Factory 5 groups, and on the forum about having to trim the front splash shields. In all of the years that I've built these cars, I think I may have had to trim one. Only one. And the reason I had to trim it was because the customer had previously trimmed the splash shields and had done a less than stellar job on them. And so I had to trim them just in order that the bulb seal would seat properly around the edges here. So if you look, right, I've got it all put in place. So I've got a couple of Clecos holding it, one at the top, a couple at the bottom there, and all I did was follow the line. So I do have a notch that I cut in the top, and that's for the wiring harness. You're going to have to do that too. Although they cut a notch in the F panel, they do not cut a notch in the splash shield itself. And then what you want to do here at the bottom is you want to line it up so that this pointed corner right here lines up with the flat of this panel here. You don't need to drop it all the way down so that they kind of overlap, because the angles don't match anyway. So I hold it about 1/4 of an inch up from the bottom, right? But when you do that, you go to put it back, push it back, and you go, oh my God, it hits the bottom, it's never gonna clear, it's never gonna clear. Well, all you have to do is pull the body out and then push it back in like this, and it fits just fine. It's supposed to be that way. You're supposed to push the body out so that you give more clearance to the top bolt on your side pipe right here. And it doesn't matter which engine platform you're running, you're gonna have problems with this bolt on the top, because the headers are different lengths for the passenger side and driver's side. Because of the way the engine sits in the car, it doesn't sit straight, it sits offset to the passenger side at the rear. And so therefore the headers are tighter on this side than they are on the other side. So don't start trimming panels. You don't need to. It's easy. Just pull the body out, push the panel back in, and you'll be fine. You can see there's plenty of margin around the outside for me to get my bulb seal in and seal off the splash shield. All right, the splash shield on this side is all done. You can see we've got black pop rivets in at the top, all the way down to the bottom, and we've got a pop rivet down here to hold the bottom of the splash shield to the fiberglass. And you can see how nicely everything fits up in here and across the top. Just came out really nice. I've already cracked the first beer for the evening. I think I'm gonna end the video here. There's no need for me to show you guys how the other one ends up. It's gonna look exactly the same. If you are enjoying the content here, as always, please do the like, the share, the subscribe, all that kind of stuff. We'll see you next time. Have a great day.